This is Daily Armenia, ＳիվիլNet's daily news digest. Here's what's making headlines in Armenia today. Azerbaijan's chairman of the Security Council, Ramil Usubov, said Baku can force peace on Yerevan, while also claiming that Armenia must rid itself of external influences that allegedly harm the country's interests, as per his article in the state-owned Azerbaijan newspaper published Tuesday. Taking advantage of its status as the winner of the war and the military power center of the region, Azerbaijan can force the defeated Armenia to sign a peace treaty, he argued, adding that Yerevan and Baku have never been as close to peace as now, as evidenced by recent bilateral agreements on border delimitation. In his article, Usubov also claimed that Azerbaijan did everything possible to integrate Karabakh Armenians into Azerbaijani society after taking full control over the region last September, while also establishing safe passage to Armenia through the Lachian corridor for them, quote, even providing them with transportation and food, end of quote. Azerbaijan launched a one-day offensive against Nagorno-Karabakh last September, taking the Armenian-populated region under its control and forcing nearly all of the region's residents to seek refuge in Armenia. This came after Baku had imposed a blockade on the region for over 9 months prior to the offensive, part of their policy to ethnically cleanse the area. The Russian peacekeepers who were deployed to the region 3 years before did not intervene. In contrast to Usubov's claims regarding the progress of normalization talks, Baku has repeatedly stalled this process, setting unfeasible preconditions and making humiliating demands, including land concessions and amendments to Armenia's constitution. High-ranking Armenian officials, including Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan, and Parliamentary Speaker Alan Simonyan, have repeatedly urged Baku to sign the already agreed-upon provisions of the normalization deal without any preconditions, leaving the unresolved disagreements for later. Armenian citizen Armen Balyan was arrested at Moscow's Domodedovo airport last month on suspicion of fighting in the Ukrainian military against Russian forces, the Russian Investigative Committee reported yesterday. Balyan arrived in Ukraine in November 2022 through Moldova and joined the Ukrainian armed forces, fighting against the Russian military in the Donetsk, Luhansk and Kherson regions, the law enforcement agency statement said, adding that Balyan has been wanted in Russia since August for mercenarism. Balyan is currently in a pre-trial jail in Moscow. It is unclear why the Russian authorities did not immediately report on his arrest or what brought him to Russia. According to the statement, Balyan admitted his guilt and confirmed that his only citizenship is Armenian. Armenia has not commented on the matter so far, despite the fact that Balyan is facing up to 18 years in Russian prison. Ukraine's regions where Balyan allegedly fought were unilaterally annexed by Russia, despite being only partially controlled by Moscow, following an internationally unrecognized sham referendum in September 2022. Consequently, under Russian law, Balyan will be tried for committing a crime on what Russia considers its territory. Ukraine is home to a large Armenian diaspora community, with roughly 400,000 Armenians residing in the country prior to the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service claimed today that the United States is planning to carry out a propaganda campaign aimed at discrediting Armenia's cooperation with Russia, while also increasing its influence in the country using civil society groups. The US is persistently pushing Armenia towards national suicide to give up its own traditions, social foundations, and stable trade and economic ties with the Eurasian Economic Union, which has ensured the dynamic growth of Armenia's economy in recent years, the Russian intelligence said. According to Russia, the United States intends to increase its influence on the Armenian political elite in order to accelerate Yerevan's reorientation towards the West. The Russian Foreign Intelligence Service claimed that Washington will use, quote, methods tested in Ukraine and Moldova, end of quote, referring to efforts to allegedly undermine Armenia's ties with Russia through propaganda and support for pro-Western civil society groups. The Armenian authorities have yet to comment on the matter. Relations between Armenia and Russia have frayed in recent years due to several key factors. Firstly, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, a Russian-led military bloc of which Armenia is a member, failed to protect Armenia during the ongoing border crisis with Azerbaijan that began in 2021 despite Azerbaijan's invasion of internationally recognized Armenian territory. This prompted the Armenian government to suspend its membership in the alliance. Secondly, Russian peacekeepers deployed to Nagorno-Karabakh were seen as ineffective during the Azerbaijani blockade of the region and the subsequent offensive which forced the entire population to flee and seek refuge in Armenia. Thirdly, Russia has repeatedly expressed aggressive discontent with Armenia's efforts to be more independent of Russian political influence and security assistance, as well as Yerevan's closer ties with the West and aspirations to join the European Union. Despite an existing contract signed last year to hold a concert by American hip-hop star Snoop Dogg in Yerevan, the event has still not taken place, and the $6 million in public funds allocated for it have not yet been returned, the Armenian branch of Radio Free Europe / Radio Liberty reported Tuesday. Armenia's Culture Ministry confirmed that the required funding was provided in 2023 through a state grant agreement, but referred the outlet to the organising company for any additional information. The latter informed Radio Free Europe that negotiations with Snoop Dogg and his team were ongoing through emails, phone calls, and in-person meetings, which had resulted in agreements being reached, taking into account the artist's busy schedule. Snoop Dogg pledged to hold the concert in Yerevan sooner or later and said he was ready to include it in his upcoming performance programs, providing the necessary instructions to his team without being specific. Snoop Dogg's concert in Yerevan, originally scheduled to be held in September 2023 at the Hrazdan Stadium, was postponed indefinitely after Azerbaijan's offensive on Nagorno-Karabakh, followed by the exodus of Armenians from the region. The government's decision to provide the substantial grant funding for this single event has drawn scrutiny from the country's civil society and media. You can also read CivilNet's article on the growing trend of Armenian women choosing to become single mothers, taking advantage of the government's artificial insemination program. The women are choosing this path for various reasons, either because they lack a partner or wish not to have one. The decision, while deeply personal, is now supported by state healthcare policy. You can read the full article by following the link in this video's description below, or by simply visiting our website at civilnet.am. And as always, please follow CivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.